Hi, welcome to Behind Every Employer, a podcast that explores the intersection of workforce development and education and searches for solutions to a more talented, skilled, and productive workforce of the future. Join us as we chat with employers, educators, and students who want to join that mission. This podcast is being sponsored by the Coalition on Adult Basic Education. Now to our hosts, Anson Green and Jeffrey Abramowitz. Hey, Anson, welcome to the Behind Every Employer podcast. I am so excited to be here. Anson, how are you?
Hey, Jeff, thrilled to be here, and I really want to welcome everyone to the podcast. We really were excited about getting this podcast going and really want to bring something valuable to our employer partners. The podcast really explores the intersection of employers that are seeking solutions for sourcing and training and growing that frontline workforce, those entry-level workers, those workers that are looking to break through and go to the next level. And we really want to do that and bring a service to the employers, but also create a forum for the partners that are so involved in making this stuff happen. The labor market pressures that businesses have been on since really the Great Recession in the mid-2000s has just been a roller coaster. It's been so difficult for employers. I mean, the micro businesses, the mom and pops, all the way up to the Fortune 100 companies have been dealing with a lot of different trends and quickly developing aspects of things in the labor market, finding talent solutions, looking for staffing solutions, retraining workers, and then the changes in technology and the changes in our demographics have all just created this whirlwind for our employer community, especially at that frontline level. Those changing demographics, the retirement cliff we hear so much about, the automation, all these things really are creating quite a dynamic world for our employer community. And what I always find is that those employers that are focusing on that entry-level workforce don't have a forum to really share their ideas, what's working, what's not working, and where trends are going. I've been working in this area for 20 years plus, working in community colleges, working at state and local governments and workforce development, and now with a Fortune 100 company. And I can tell you, this is a great forum for folks to really bring their ideas to the table and hear what others are doing from around the country. So, Jeff, where are you coming from in all this?
Yeah, so the world that I sit in, Anson, is right in the intersection between adult literacy, adult education, and workforce development. Because we all know that in order to really build a robust workforce, we need to be able to educate our employees, and we need smart people that are able to do those jobs and they have the skills to be successful and to really advance in companies. So the work that I do across the country and here in Pennsylvania, where my home base is really in that center and looking at innovations and working with employers and bringing the labor market together with education and adult literacy is so key. And Anson, I know you've sat in the center of this for so long as a director of adult literacy and adult education. What started the idea for the podcast?
I really found myself, here in Texas. You're coming out of Pennsylvania, I'm coming out of Texas, and I really found in a big state like that, every community I went to where I was working with businesses and talking to businesses, I heard the same story over and over. People felt like they were isolated. They didn't know what to do. They felt like, our labor market is unique. And it is in many ways, but there are these themes. And the one theme I always heard was, while we have big forums for things like apprenticeships and the skills gap and labor market dynamics and things like that, that entry-level worker discussion, that upskilling discussion, the discussion of new Americans coming into the workforce, that is something employers just don't have big forums to talk about. And it's something that I think the adult education world kind of has a marquee in. That's really where our main customer is, our student base is that workforce. And a lot of times, I hear people think, well, that entry-level workforce is, not one we have to think about. It's something that's always going to be there. We can just always find more workers, as kind of almost a myth. And it's really not that way. Businesses, when you talk with them, are really, really interested in what they can do to retain that workforce, find those workers, and most importantly, upskill those workers. The amount of companies I have spoken to over the years that come to me and say, like, we've got all these loyal workers at the front line. Maybe they have limited English. Maybe they've need math remediation and things like that, but they want to move up. They've been here. We trust them. They know the company policies and procedures. How do we do it? How do we build that foundation of skills to grow them in the company and invest in that loyalty? And so I think behind every employer is going to be a great place to share those best practices and help employers not feel alone. And on the flip side, in our provider community, our schools, our colleges that work with those entry-level workers as their main student base, they're looking for a form that they can find of employers that can be a resource to help individuals find jobs, find good employers that really want to invest in that frontline workforce. So it's a good marriage between the provider community, that public sector community that's doing so much hard work out there, and the employers that are looking for loyal workers and looking for ways to grow them.
Absolutely. So, Anson, in the world that I work in, it often is not just finding the job, but how to keep the job, how people can retain it. And the realization is it's a hard world out there for a lot of people, especially marginalized populations that we work with who are in the justice system or having challenges, or maybe didn't have such a good experience when they were in grade school and when they first hit the educational, were in those classrooms. And behind every employer was really a campaign strategically to connect companies with education and workforce organizations that really helps them grow and make a strong workforce. And I'm so looking forward to hearing some of the amazing people that you have lined up. And I know I have a whole bag of people that I'm looking to call on that really are going to be able to share not only their creativity and their innovations, but their passion for people and for the workforce, and also for education, and really seeing companies grow and be significantly established in this community today. And we know that there's some challenges right now in the labor force. So I'm hoping that employers are going to join us, educators, students, and we welcome everyone to this podcast. We're going to be airing really soon, so I'm hoping you'll stay tuned for us. This podcast is being sponsored by the Coalition on Adult Basic Education, and it'll be out through multiple sources across the country, and we're looking forward to engaging with everyone. We will also be posting stuff on our COABE Facebook page, so you'll be able to see it there. It'll be on Spotify, on Facebook Live, on YouTube, and a whole bunch of other places. So stay tuned as we begin to launch a really exciting Behind the Employer podcast.
All right, let's go, Jeff. I'm in.
You got it. You've been listening to the Behind Every Employer podcast with Anson Green and Jeffrey Abramowitz. This podcast is sponsored by the Coalition on Adult Basic Education. Check us out on coabe.org, on the COABE YouTube channel, on Spotify, Facebook, or Instagram.